Hey everyone, welcome back to New Stigmas and Open Wounds. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Eric.
All right. So I don't know if you know, Eric, but today we're going to talk about the importance and the stigma of getting in touch with your spiritual side.
We have a spiritual side,
We have
Tracy?
a spiritual side. You know, it's funny because I was just going to say, I feel like you're kind of getting in touch with your spiritual side lately, but if you don't know, then maybe you don't realize it. So I think we should probably start out with talking about what our spiritual side is.
Yes, because I think a lot of people, their brain is going to go directly towards religion, which
Right.
I think
And
it's not what we're really talking about
very
here,
broad.
right?
Well, it's one of the things,
Okay.
but it's very broad. We can talk about religion. Ironically, one of our friends was saying that when she speaks with some of her spirit guides, happens to be very religious, more religious than what I get, which is kind of funny because I am more of I'm more religious, I would say, than she is. She's not a religious type of person, yet she gets religious spirit guides. So it's kind of funny. You can go more the religious route, but you don't have to. You don't have to be a God, Buddha, whatever route in that sense. You can just get in touch with yourself. You can get in touch with nature. What you can get in touch with, the spiritual side of life relates to a person's inner character, thoughts, and beliefs rather than their physical surroundings.
That is a pretty darn good
Isn't that?
description of it.
It can also relate to the perception of themselves in relation to the universe, others, and Earth. And let's see, it can involve a search for meaning, purpose, or identity, and can include a personal growth or transformation. Some examples include seeking inner peace, questioning identity and place in the universe, getting back in touch with religion, or a higher power, asking for forgiveness, and taking stock of life. So basically, looking inward. So looking generally,
that's another good way to put it.
Yes, I know. I'm really glad that I came up with that one. So yeah, and it's whatever we can't see inside of ourselves, but getting in touch with ourselves, getting in touch with nature. So a lot of people have issues with this because you can't see it. You can't see what comes within us, and you have to feel it, right? And it can be hard because you just kind of have to go with the flow and say, this is what I'm feeling now. This is what I was feeling. And it can be really hard. You kind of have to have, a lot of people like to have concrete results, and they like to know where they're going and all that kind of thing.
The whole thing I find really interesting about this, and maybe you can explain this to me so I understand it, but so you're talking about getting in touch with your spiritual self is looking within you, making you the bigger you, making you,
right.
Whatever.
And even if you're not becoming the bigger you, it's just trying to understand
why you tick the way you do, why you're motivated about
whatever
the things,
you're trying
just really
to
understanding
understand
yourself.
Mm-hmm. Or life itself, whatever because sometimes you're just trying to understand something at the moment. And so it doesn't even have to be
so it's like
self-growth.
It's like self-growth and development.
Right.
But now, didn't you say at the beginning of this episode that we were discussing the stigmas behind?
Absolutely. Because
so
think about
what you're saying is that there is a stigma behind self-growth.
In a sense.
And how does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. But
this doesn't seem like something we should have a stigma against. This is something we probably should be encouraging people.
We should.
We
should. But if you think about it,
more of.
If you think about it, a lot of people who are very spiritual, very whatever, they call them woo-woo people, and you go around and you're very maybe enlightened and you look inward a lot instead of for concrete answers. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're a lot of in their head. They're maybe in tune with nature. And you can't see the results that are 2 + 2 = 4. A lot of those people can't see the results that other people can see maybe. And if they're not the results that are perhaps on paper that everybody else can see, they're inward. I can't see what's inside of you. So how do I know what's ticking inside of you unless I reach inside of you and feel your heart or feel whatever? So I can't believe, I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I don't believe that then. A lot of people like to see what they can believe, feel what they can believe. So if I can't touch it, if I can't see it, I don't want to believe that.
See, and I would kind of argue that because I think that I don't know that people really suffer so much with. I mean, it's deeper than that because think about it. Think about it. Do you know anybody that doesn't believe oxygen is a thing?
Maybe not, but I think that that's something that I think we've just all kind of accepted.
Why? But why? Because science says it's right.
Perhaps. I think
because from a young age we're taught that this is the thing that makes us able to live.
That's true. You're right. I mean, but science has not yet proven spirituality.
No, they haven't. But the point being here is that there are already things out there that we can't see, that we can't touch, that we can't
but science
conceive
has
in
proven
any
it.
way that we accept as being there.
Right, but has science proven it?
I don't know. Can science prove, that oxygen is there? Not definitively.
Maybe not. But
I mean, we know that if we don't breathe, we're going to start to choke. But does that really mean because there's
I think it's been proven by enough people.
It's accepted.
I feel as though that is one of those people or one of those facts that has been proven enough or been just accepted by enough people.
It's accepted.
It's accepted enough.
And you can
have
argue
enough people. So say I have a vision with a spirit guide or something like that. It is probably going to be different than yours. And I feel as though God or Buddha is accepted. And I apologize. Those are the two biggest ones that I know. So those are the ones I'm going to be using as an example. Those two are accepted by enough people. And yet they are still shunned by a huge population because there's still a huge population who are like, I can't see it, so I don't believe it. Yet there's still a huge population who are like, I can't see it, but I do believe it. So there's a population that are split on that one. You see a population who can't see it, but they feel like it exists. And that population says, I don't see it, but I believe it, such as oxygen.
But see, now you bring up another interesting question with that. So you're right. There's a divide. There's people that don't believe in religion. There's people that do believe in religion. But for the most part in society, religion is accepted as a thing you can believe in. Yeah. Now, granted, I will 100% agree with you that there are people out there that
you have to know who you can talk to,
that are absolutely opposed to religion.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, that is an accepted thing in our society. Right. Just like oxygen is an accepted thing in our society. Right. And this is one of the big things that I have, in my head, gone over many, many times. Aren't we all, if we say, okay, so we did chakras in the last episode. Mm-hmm. So if I look at you and say that, yeah, religion might be real, or, oh, I absolutely believe in religion.
Mm-hmm.
But this chakra thing, that's crap.
Right.
That's crap. And that doesn't make any sense because there's just as much bearing to believe in chakras as there are. I mean,
absolutely.
What's your defense that, well, religion could be right because there's more books written on religion or what? I mean,
right.
Right.
What is the difference between chakras and God in a sense? Because I could feel chakras more than God possibly. Or what is, God put the chakras in me. There's so much, there are so many arguments as to why one would be real and one wouldn't be real, or why they would both be real. And there's a really interesting argument that we could go down such a rabbit hole of episodes with that. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say why somebody would believe in one and not the other, or both.
And I guess for anybody that's out there that thinks oh, religion is crap, all this woo-hoo mumbo jumbo is crap. really take a sit back and think about it. Like, because I promise you, there's something in your life that's just unproven, and
absolutely.
And
why do you believe in that?
But you believe in that
absolutely.
Because of some reason that beyond a shadow of doubt that this is probably real.
Right. There's something.
So why can't it be on the other side too, on the spiritual side?
Yeah. And I think no matter what, we have to have respect for whatever somebody else believes, because they have something that makes them believe that. And it makes them feel better. It fulfills their life for some reason. And, you know, this spirituality, you can get a lot out of it if you go down this rabbit hole, or however you want to say it. If you fill your life with spiritual growth, it can have a lot of benefits. So I have written down here, if you go down this hole of spiritual growth, I mean, you can have some better physical health, mental health, increase compassion, strengthen relationships. I mean, seriously, if you do this, I mean, seriously, what harm is it if you start looking inside of yourself and you connect with nature, just look inside yourself, spend a week looking inside of yourself.
Learn about yourself, you know?
I know some people don't want to learn about yourself because you realize maybe you're not liking what you're learning about yourself, but maybe that's a reason why you should learn about yourself.
You should learn about yourself, because if you don't fully grasp your weaknesses, how do you get better at anything?
Right.
You know, like, you're just going to surf through life, you know, sucking at something that you could probably easily fix, but you're not willing to just acknowledge the fact that that's a weakness of you.
Right. I mean, and it's really interesting because now I've been really even taking away at things from younger ages, and I'm like, oh, this happened when I was, you know, maybe preteen, teen, and even high school. And I'm like, oh, this is why I do this. And I'm not even saying that you guys have to do this, but even if you start taking away at some of the hard stuff that you don't even want to touch, that we've maybe sheltered away, you start to realize why you really do some of this stuff. So if you start with maybe some of the easier spiritual stuff, then you can really start to take away. It's like when you start easy cleaning in your house, and then you're like, well, I guess I'll scrub the bathroom now. Mm-hmm. Then you can really start to work on yourself, and you start to realize it's not that hard, and your life really does start to lift. Like, I start to feel a lot lighter. And yeah, I have hard days. And
so now
hard
talk
moments.
about, why do you think that you feel lighter by doing this?
I am getting to know myself more, and I'm starting to understand, oh, this is why I'm doing this. Maybe you need to transform this, or you know what, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this again, or okay, I need to stop this, or yeah, I am just really getting in tune with nature again. And I try to step out the house every day, and I am, again, I kind of was talking about spirit guides, and I do want to have an episode where we talk specifically about spirit guides. I try to meditate 3 times a day. I've been upping that. So when you meditate, it's just taking a few minutes out of your day to stop, whether it's, try to meditate 5 minutes per time. So whether it's taking 5 minutes each time, whether it's taking a minute each time, I'm meditating and just taking a few minutes out of your day and saying, okay, I'm stopping. And then you come out. And when I do that, sometimes I see a spirit guide and they say, this is what you need to do right now, either slow down or path correct. It's just really nice to stop and reflect at where I'm at now, maybe where I was, and be like, oh, I thought I was doing really bad at where I'm at now, and now I'm not doing so bad. So just stopping and reflecting and saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I was doing, this is where I'm going. Just stopping a few minutes each day, a few minutes each week, and saying, this is what I'm doing. It's really great. And I have a list of some ways that you can get in touch with your spiritual side as well.
So now, tell me though. So let's just say that I could definitively prove to you right now, which for all the listeners, I can't do this, but I can definitively prove to you that everything you see
is bull.
Yeah.
I would still do
it's
it.
it's like a conjurement of your brain or something, you know. It's like an illusion.
Still do it.
And why?
And maybe I wouldn't try to speak with a spirit guide, but I would still meditate, because taking 5, 10, 15 minutes out of my day to slow down, to maybe say, this is where I'm going, this is what I was doing in my day, and hey, let's stop, is not a bad thing. You take a couple minutes out of each day and you say, oh, this is what I should do with the project I'm working on. Why is that hard? Why is that a bad thing? When I'm sitting outside and it's raining or it's a really beautiful windy day, and I sit and I listen to what's going on outside, why is that a bad thing to take 5 minutes and just listen to the wind blowing or the rain?
And
that's not a bad thing. Even if my spirit guides aren't real, which I really do think that at least a couple of them that I'm seeing are definitely giving me messages. Even if they're completely fake and in my brain, I still think that whatever I'm getting from meditating, from just taking a few minutes out of during my walk and noticing the pretty leaves, whatever I'm doing in my spirituality, when I'm doing my sun salutation outside, whatever I'm doing, and just trying to notice things in my life, I think that I am feeling lighter in my life. So even if all of this stuff is bull, I feel so much lighter knowing about the chakras in my body. Even if, again, that's fake, I feel the energy. I feel like I am unblocking stuff. I am addressing things that happened in my life and saying it's not my fault that somebody made fun of me. It's their fault. And it's stuff that I'm saying, look, I'm addressing stuff that I should have addressed years ago. And I'm getting in touch with my inner self. Why is that bad to get in touch with my inner self? Nothing is bad about getting in touch with my inner self.
And that's what I think the big point that I'm trying to make with this series of questions is that even if you're like a naysayer in this type of stuff, just think about it. What it's teaching you to is to sit down and reflect on your life, try to find flaws in your life, try to find things that you can make better. Yeah. None of this is bad stuff. This is all stuff that we should all be doing.
Yeah.
But many of us probably are not, just because in today's society,
it's live in a world. Go.
Yeah, it's a go, and it's never a time to sit down and really...
And there's a stigma against it as well. You know, you sit down and you leave a wedding for 5 minutes and go meditate, people look at you weird. Mm. You know, but I was like, this is a loud wedding. I'm going to go take 5 minutes.
I promise you, most people at a wedding don't think you're weird for doing that, because they don't even realize.
I don't think they realized, because I went somewhere else.
Well, and they just don't realize when one person out of 500 people leave.
But still, I mean, it felt really good to take 5 minutes out and meditate, because I was like, it is so loud. I got to go somewhere. So getting in that practice where you just start to feel comfortable and go somewhere, it feels really good. And before we get too far, I do want to bring up how you can start to get in touch with your spiritual side. So there are a couple ways. So you can just get in touch with it by going outside in nature. You can do some yoga, you know, depending on what kind of yoga. I don't know if hot yoga can do it, because you might just be like, I'm sweating too much. Never done that. But depending on if you do a nice, easy yoga. So you can also, again, meditate. Prayer is a really good way. Set some intentions for yourself. Self-reflection, obviously. And feel your feelings. You know, when you're starting to cry, let that crying out. So you can practice some gratitude. Serve others. I've noticed that I've been helping others so much more. I'm just like, you know what? Good karma is not a bad thing. It always comes back to help you. Seeing the good in others, no matter what, if somebody annoys you, just say, you know what, here's the thing. You know, somebody was kind of annoying me, and I'm like, here's the thing. I'm glad that they're happy.
Right.
That's the only thing is, look, are they happy? This is good.
Yeah, and I think that I think a really healthy thing that I have found myself that I do a lot, and I wish more people would do it, is somebody will be doing something that maybe would be I don't know, inappropriate,
Yeah.
arguably, or maybe just weird.
Yeah.
And everybody just sits around and judges them. And I'm like,
right, and you're
I'm like, why do
Why
they
are
do
you?
that?
Right,
Like,
right.
you know.
And sometimes even if you can say, maybe even speak up, maybe.
Yeah, try instead of judging, try
say
understanding.
why are they, yeah. And you can also, oh, I love this. So take care of your body, connect with like-minded people, listen to your gut, not dismissing signs, and ask for help when you need it. And we already talked about that in an episode. That's a hard one.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can get in touch with your spiritual side. You know, it's not all the woo-woo stuff. It's just some really simple ways. So find the easiest way for you to start, and then you can kind of start adding on or switch out. And yeah, I mean, you guys, it's not that hard. Now, you've kind of been slowly getting in touch with your spiritual side, kind of playing with it. You've been meditating. You've even been doing a little bit of yoga with me, which is rad.
Mhm.
Love it. So yeah, I mean, how's that been going for you?
I mean, it has opened my eyes a little bit, because one of the things, because I'm very logical, analytical, whatever you
Yes,
want to
and
call
that's kind of
call
what's
it.
really cool about you.
I have to work in my brain. I have to find like a logical reason why
Right.
this stuff will work. And one of the big things that I've come to is that I've just kind of learned that we don't know nothing. I mean,
Right.
scientists know nothing about the way our brain works. I mean,
Yeah.
Probably if you look, but we've come so far. Like, yeah, from 100 years ago, we know a lot more about our brain than we do now, but we still don't
It's so
understand why it
complicated.
does half of what it does. Which, in my brain, using my simple logic, I say, if we don't know
Right.
what half of our brain is capable of, we don't
Couldn't
know
it
what our
be-
brain can do.
Right. Couldn't it be,
So-
logical that it would do some of this stuff?
Yeah, so like I remember, I refer back to like your chakras episode. I don't know if this was in the book review or in the actual episode. Maybe it was in both. But you talked about how some Reikis can actually see like
my
the
gosh.
chakras light up in a person.
Yes, I would love to see that.
And I'm like, when I hear that, I'm like,
You're like,
yeah,
oh,
I don't believe that for a second. But
Right.
at the same time, if they have a large amount of people saying they can do this,
Right.
and
That's
we
what I
don't
say.
know what half of our brain is capable of doing, is it really unreasonable for that somebody could hone this skill?
Right. Well, and that's what I say. I'm like, well, sometimes I feel like I can feel when I'm in this presence of a spirit, like a kind of a spirit that's been treated bad. You know, I can feel it, a tightness in my chest. But then I'm like, people probably think I'm weird. And then I also say, people can see spirits, and that's one that I still haven't been able to do. And I'm like, well, what does it look like? Is this really true? Because I've never seen it. Can that really happen? Come on.
Yeah.
You know, and because I've never seen it, I still can't fathom this. Right?
Right.
And so that's kind of along the same lines. And I'm like, I just don't know.
And
But
then
I can't, I'm still open to it.
so there's these people, these Reikis that can see the different colors of the chakras.
Yeah.
And that's completely ridiculous. In my common sense brain, I'm told
Right.
that's not right. Like, no, there's no way you can do that.
Yeah,
But-
it's something you can
but
imagine
being
as a
that
kid.
we don't understand how our brain processes anything.
Yeah.
It's very possible that that's capable. We just haven't
Oh, right.
been able to, science hasn't been able to prove it yet. And that's with everything. All this spiritual stuff is, you know, in fact, somebody recently told me that, I listened to this podcast with this neurobiologist, and he was talking about how when he first started working in the industry, because he's like a science researcher, and he's like, if I would have gone to somebody to try to get funding to do funding on some of this stuff, meditation, chakras, any of this stuff, he says,
You wouldn't have been
he
able
said,
to,
he
right?
said, I would have gotten laughed out of the room.
Yeah, and at least
But
now they're
now-
getting funding.
But now they're handing out money like candy to research this, because the government's starting to acknowledge, like, okay, maybe there is something to this.
Yeah.
So there's things in the world that I see happening that are suggesting that
it is suggesting
our common society
yeah
is starting to come around to this idea that, hey, maybe this is
right
something valuable. Maybe there is something to this.
I do think so. I think it depends. I mean, it's not being as talked about as much, and it's weird to see who I can talk to about this and who I can't, because some people are like, oh, this is interesting, and some people are like, oh, that's interesting, and then they walk away and they look at you like you have like 3 heads.
Right.
So it's kind of funny, but then some people are like, that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Have you noticed too? It's never. You can't predict.
You cannot predict. No.
Which way it's going to go, because I have seen you. I don't typically talk too much about this stuff to people because
I've started to get to the point where it's becoming such a big part of my life, where it's just something that I talk about, and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, because it's weird to people, and I kind of forget how weird it is, and I blurt things out, and I'm like, oh, I maybe said too much, and not too much for me, too much for them, because like it's too much for them to digest at once, because I realized like I told them a lot of information that they might not understand, or it's just a lot of weirdness to them, and I'm like, well, they'll understand someday maybe, but it's fun. I love this, but I think the hard thing is that when you get somebody and they're like, oh, were you just talking to your imaginary friends? And I think that's the hard thing. And if you are around somebody who gets in touch with their spiritual side, just respect them.
Right.
Don't say something like that.
If you're the person that first of all, if it bothers you that somebody says that to you, then don't tell that person about it.
Right. Oh, goodness,
just drop,
no, I don't.
Don't forget the fact that you talk to spirit guides within 12 minutes. So
yeah, obviously I know that I'm going to get that reaction, but just no matter what, be respectful of anybody, no matter what they do. And just especially, if they're doing something like this, first of all, they're being vulnerable enough to tell you that they're doing something like this. And, just be like, you know what? Thank you for telling me. And what?
Don't look at somebody like they're crazy unless you can prove they're wrong.
Exactly.
And you can't. And I'm very, very sorry to tell you, you
have no idea.
With most of this stuff, you can probably prove that there's questions behind it, that it's not 100% definitively accurate, but you can't disprove it.
No.
Because it's all within you. And once again, scientists only know a fraction of what our brains can do. So you as a person, unless you're one of these scientists that studies the human brain every day, even less of what the brain is capable of doing. So
yeah.
And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is that they say that a lot of these skills are honed.
Oh yeah.
Over time, you get better and better and better at them. And if you think about it, so if you look at our trajectory as a society over time, we started out much, much, much more spiritual.
Yes.
If you think about people 100, 200, 300 years ago,
I feel
they
like
were
it got
far
dampened.
more spiritual than we are today, because as science is disproving things and stuff like that.
Right, or at least trying to.
Yeah, people are, well, and they are.
Yeah,
they're absolutely. Like people used to dump women in I mean, this is my favorite metaphor to say,
Yes.
like, if you ever say, well, we understand everything. It's like, no, we don't. 100 years ago, we were throwing people in water and saying if they floated, they were friggin' witches.
Yeah. Well,
that's ridiculous.
I probably would have been burned, and they would have been like, she's doing weird things. Let's burn her.
But the point is that if we're spiritual 100 years ago and slowly that's gone away, a lot of these abilities are not being used anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the hard thing is that as kids, we are more open to things. I mean, my God, I made fun potions when I was a kid. I mean, all our neighbors, we would gather random things and we're like, let's put it in here and make potions. And now I might burn things to, incense and whatnot, but I don't do that anymore.
But I think it even goes beyond just that. Because
Right.
I'm not talking about from your childhood to your adulthood. I'm talking like 100 years ago. A
Right.
child was
Right.
probably
But I mean, I think
making more potions than a child
and
today
I think,
is.
But I think it's even as a person grows up, we're dampened because it's kind of like as for instance, because I know that's when we're at least these days are most open because people haven't dampened in us. So in relation to 100 years ago, well, at least 41 years ago, I didn't have it dampened, and now people are trying to dampen it. And now I'm reopening those doors again because now I'm relearning about all these things, or I'm now learning about them because people aren't trying to shut them out and saying this is weird. Now
Right.
I can say, oh, these are the things that I can know about because people aren't trying to say it's not real or anything like that. I can say, this is what I want to know, and this is my spiritual side. And
right. And I just look at it, and let's just say society had not taken that leap and started killing off that spiritual side of things. What would the world look like today? It might be a lot different because a lot more people were honing these skills.
Yeah, and we might actually have people going in the woods and gathering lavender and different things like that, like the spiritual witches and stuff, like trying to make healing potions, if you want to call it that.
Well,
instead
and
of
all of that,
and all these different people, like, I mean, think about it. You have people who are using essential oils. Like, that's like the new people who were like the old people being called witches. I would be called a witch because I'm using essential oils, right?
Right.
So I just, because I remember like in Outlander, she was being called a witch because she was gathering lavender and all these different things. I'm like, oh no. Well, I would be called that because I use different things. I mean, yeah, I use regular things, but still. So
yeah,
it's just different things like that they would be like, you're weird.
Right. And I also think that if nothing else, if you're like sitting here thinking, well, none of that crap is going to help me, none of that stuff is real, blah, blah, blah. The one thing I will tell you that I've learned personally about this is that a world where the possibility of these things being...
I like that possibility.
Of being real is a hell of a lot more interesting than a world where it's all fake.
I think the biggest thing is, I think you just need to let the possibilities in. No matter what, if you want to at least look at it and say, this isn't for me, great. But at least don't let somebody tell you that it's not real. At least look at it and say, you know what? This is or isn't for me.
Yeah, and the next time something weird happens to you, just
investigate it.
Well, yeah, think about it once. Say like, yeah, you know what? Maybe something weird.
Somebody wanted
something weird happened on a camera. Like you went to the strip club and took a picture. The supposed haunted strip club.
Yep.
Took a picture and like there's all sorts of weird stuff in the picture. And yeah, maybe my camera in my phone, because it's not a good camera, did something weird.
I think it was a ghost.
Maybe it's something more than that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just as reasonable that
it
could just be something really weird to happen in the room when you took the picture. It might,
exactly. I mean, look, when we do some of this spiritual stuff, some of this ghosty type stuff, it's not like we're full feet in, believing. We do also use the logical side and say, could this be? I mean, and you can do it however you want to do. You can go feet first, head first in and say, look, whoever is guiding me. Or you can say, whoever wants to guide me, I'm also going to question you. I've done it both ways. I've always, I had a period of time where I was like, God, I don't know if you're real, if you're guiding me. And I think that's absolutely fine because I think it's definitely okay to wonder what's out there, who's out there, if there's something out there. And I think it's okay to question if your camera was functioning okay when you may or may not have taken a picture of that ghost, if it was a ghost. I think it's okay because I think we should question what's out there. But if you get that gut feeling and you want to follow what's possibly leading you, go for it. We all have to do what's right for us, how it's right for us. But I don't think we should shut out our spiritual side, because no matter what, I think that there's great benefits from it. And I think that
I would agree with
society is definitely trying to kind of shut it down a little bit more than they should. I think that we're
it's
opening up a little bit, but it's still not as big as it should be.
Well, I mean, it's in this point.
It's in a weird limbo.
I feel like in 30 years,
It
lot
could be
more
bigger.
of this stuff. I mean, it's not going to be accepted, but it's going to be more.
It's accepted by certain people. You know, you go to like California.
If you ask me, like I'm thinking like hospices and stuff like that.
Yes, I could see them.
In 30 years, is it going to be uncommon for them to have a meditation hour with all their patients? I don't think so.
Or even a light yoga for some of the. I could totally see my grandma benefiting from a light yoga. Oh my gosh, I should go over to her house and say, "Grams, let's do some yoga." Yeah,
I mean, things like that. It's going to become a lot more common because they are looking at it now as something that is real. And I guess this whole spiritual thing, I can equate this to something that is going on all around us right now.
Literally.
And it's a thing that I think people are people are really in support of, so it's kind of a good thing to compare it to.
I think we're getting more people in support of it and kind of bullying up.
But this is something completely different than spiritual things that I can use as a comparison. Can you imagine what it is?
No.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm lost here.
So now if you watch society right now, as more states legalize marijuana.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You will see...
Yes.
That there are people
because
that are completely changing. Yes. I mean, it is so funny because literally, there are people overnight. They're completely changing their whole philosophy on marijuana. Suddenly marijuana, and I'm sorry, I should say cannabis, because apparently marijuana is like a racist way to say weed or something.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
There are people that are, because I guess that word... When the government wanted people not to like weed, they wanted it to sound more Mexican. And I guess that's where the word marijuana came from. But anyways.
Oh my God.
But you'll see, like, literally overnight, people's views on cannabis change because it's becoming more in the limelight. It's becoming more accepted. Yeah. And that's what's going to eventually happen with... I'm not going to say it's going to happen with all this stuff, but a lot of this stuff is...
saying that you become more a little bit spiritual is because if people get high, you become a little bit more mellow. Yeah. And then you do a little bit more.
That's a whole other topic. But what I'm trying to show is that...
But yeah, you're right.
That if you're one of those people that absolutely believe like everything we've believed for the past 30 years about marijuana or cannabis is...
It has been changing.
Wrong. That's crazy. Exactly. That's all based on the same concept behind.
Right.
Behind.
It is funny to watch how it changes. Yeah.
And you're going to see that. Yeah. As the government kind of gives a head nod to meditation being okay. A lot more companies are going to start adopting these philosophies, and then it's pretty soon you're going to go to work. And they're going to have meditations.
Yes.
And when that happens, guess what? It's all over. The person that's sitting here thinking that meditation is the dumbest thing in the world, guess what? You just lost. Because now you're going to go to work and do it, and it's just going to become a normal thing to you.
That's true.
And
yeah, well,
I kind of feel like
you mentioned that the other night, because I think you said once the government says yes, more people are going to say, well, I guess if the government said it, well, it must be true. Mm-hmm. If somebody that you know says yay to it, well, that's a big push to you saying yay.
Yeah, and I can give a little stat. This isn't really on course with the episode, but I can tell you, I believe I read in a book, if I remember correctly, that 42% of Americans believe in the paranormal.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's bigger than I thought.
So now think about it. Now that's not quite 50%, but But I mean, to me, and maybe this is just me, maybe the rest of the world would say, no, that's not the way it is at all. We all question it. To me, our society has the culture that the paranormal pretty much doesn't exist. It's fictional. It's all in people's minds and stuff like that. And I'm like, and when I hear that stat, I'm like, how can something that 42% of people believe in just be not right?
Right.
There has to be something there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's no way that this many people believe in this thing and it's not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say it's real in the sense of like
we can touch
real,
it, speak with
real.
it. Yeah.
But there's something there.
There's something, whether it's a little fluster that talks to us. But yeah, I mean, and I feel like eventually we're going to get to that point with spirituality.
Yeah, and all of these things are going to follow those lines where there's just too many people that believe in this stuff for there to not be something for it. And I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this in the chakras episode where you swing back to like a lot of this spiritual stuff all stems from like Asian cultures, Middle Eastern cultures and stuff like that. In a lot of these countries, first of all, the foundations of their countries were based on this.
Yes.
And still, like,
they still are.
Like, I mean, understand, you go to Thailand and you disrespect a Buddha, you can go to jail for that.
Yes, I recall seeing that. I think
they had
wasn't
signs
it on a
everywhere.
billboard?
Yeah, they had signs for it everywhere.
I remember
in
as soon
Thailand.
as we were in the taxi going to our hotel, I was like, oh, well, I better make sure that I don't accidentally say something about Buddha.
Yeah, and when there's a whole country that believes that deeply into that, and Buddha is like the basis of a lot of this stuff. I mean, meditation is a critical piece of it. I'm sure chakras, all this stuff is in there. And if that country believes so thoroughly in this, there has to be something to it.
Yeah.
And I always look at it and say that let's use Western culture is very, very analytical in the sense that you can't touch it, whatever, it's not real. And it's like, are we as the Western culture, are we just beating out half of the capabilities of our brain? I think
we are.
Because
look at how fast we move.
Removing that whole spiritual element from our life, which we don't even know what our brain's capable of with those.
If we just kind of use one example, look at how many people are burning out because it's a 9-to-5 job, but then it becomes a 7-to-6 job because we fired or we lost somebody, but you have to take their position and because we're not going to hire somebody else or, stuff like that. And it's just, this concrete jungle and people are working so hard. And instead of taking time to meditate, you're going to take that time to work harder. And I just think that this is such a work-based culture and it's about getting things done instead of getting things done in terms of spirituality. And I think we need to take more time to look inwards and look at, spirituality and things like that and understand where we're going with our lives instead of looking at what we're doing for the company and things like that. Because that's not going to be here when we leave. Maybe the company will be, but that's not what's important. The spiritual and our lives and stuff like that are making money is not important. That's only important in the short run. And whatever types of stuff that people are just running themselves ragged for. So I just think that we need to look inward and take a few more breaks. And I know people are like, I don't have time to take breaks. And unfortunately, you guys, when you say that, that's when and there was a day that I was like, I don't have time to meditate. And I was like, Tracy, what do you say to people who say that?
Right. And I think a lot of what you just said, it can be summed up in the sense of take time and realize what you really want. Don't. So like I kind of feel like everybody looks out into the future. And they can see so far.
They do a 5-year plan.
They can see so far. And then after that, they're not sure what's really going to happen. And they're always saying that everything's going to get better once they get to that part they can't see. That's the key. I got to get through this part, and then when I'm into that area that I can't see, it's going to be good. Right.
But how do you?
But
get
it
to that
never
point?
it never happens because you just keep pushing out that point that you can't see anymore.
Because
so you never get happy.
And you keep doing what you're doing. You keep pushing that motor and doing what
you're in a hamster wheel running around in a circle, and nothing ever changes. And the only way that things will change is if you stop
and change things
and look
yourself.
at it and say, okay, where do I want to be and what do I have to change to get to that?
And honestly, that is how meditation sometimes helps me. And sometimes I go and I say, I stop in my meditation, and sometimes I speak to a spirit guide. And whether you want to say it really is a spirit guide or not, but I say, I say, so can I speak to a spirit guide who wants to help me, look at my future, or, however you want to put it, or you just take that 5 minutes and say, I need to think about what my future is going to be. And you take those as many minutes as you need and look at what your future is going to be, or, what your plan is going to be, whatever you need to meditate out. And sometimes all you need is a few minutes, and you at least have a little bit of a plan. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, I have done that a couple times, however many times. And you have even just a little piece of a plan, and you're like, oh my God, now I know what I need to do. Sometimes you end up with nothing, but sometimes you end up with you're like, oh, I know. So.
And if you're the type of person that you're like, I just cannot wrap my head around this idea of meditation, then call it something else. It doesn't need to be meditation.
Because Eric's like, if it's not meditation, if I find out that meditation is useless, I'll just keep doing this and just call it something else.
Right.
Because he's like, I work out things when I'm doing this. I work out because he's like, sometimes I just work out what I'm doing in my project, and sometimes he just clears his head. I mean, you can do however you want in your meditation. It's however you want. Take however many minutes. Clear your head or do whatever you want in that head. That's your meditation session. That's your time to be with yourself. You can play music. You can do a guided meditation. I used to do a guided meditation. Now I don't. I just either play music or just play a kind of background noise just so that I can kind of have whatever. And I'm in my head and I do whatever thoughts I need or don't need at that moment. And you will be surprised at what clarity you get. And again, sometimes I come out and I'm like, I didn't really get much, but you know what? I had a few minutes where I just was.
And I think I heard about this on another podcast too, but like, if you've ever noticed when you like drive.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, sometimes I come out and I'm like, where was I for a few minutes there?
Yeah. Well, when you drive, your brain gets into a kind of a different sort of state. And if you've ever been driving and come up with a really good idea.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't speak when we're in the car for a few minutes together. And I'm like, I'm just going to let him be.
That's so basically that's like another
almost
form.
Like a meditation.
Yeah. That's another form of meditation because your brain goes into the state like, It's literally like when you're driving, your brain goes into a state that's really good for figuring things out.
So guess what, guys? You may be meditating in a sense without knowing it.
So yeah, if you've gotten value from the good ideas that come from driving, take a 3-hour drive and you might figure something out. That's exactly what meditation does.
Yes, you just maybe didn't close your eyes or something like that.
Yeah, and you didn't call it meditation, and maybe you didn't have background music that, on a CD it says meditation music. That's the only difference.
What? If you like that music, that can be some of your meditation music. Yep. I mean, that right there was a really good tip that you gave there, Eric, because I've done that before. Because I think on the way home yesterday, there were a couple moments when I was actually working on planning this podcast, and I think you were we're thinking about your own thing, and I'm like, we're just gonna drive in silence because we're thinking about our own thing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it just was. Sometimes we drive in a very comfortable silence where we're doing our own pseudo meditation, and it's great. Mm-hmm. So it is. And that's kind of a way that you can almost ease yourself into to your own kind of meditation without knowing it.
Yeah. And the big thing, like, we use these terms, meditation, chakras, But it does. If you're that uncomfortable about that, it doesn't have to be that.
It doesn't have
Create
to be.
what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Just
say
be
these things, this energy that's flowing inside of me, because that's basically what it is, you guys.
And you don't have to, because some people are going to be like, "Oh, energy, that sounds so spiritual."
Yeah.
Well, then don't use the word energy. Come up with something else, But But the point is that you're basically putting your mind into a state that that allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And I promise you that that's going to be beneficial for you. I mean, if you have a pressing problem, put on a slow, calm song.
Yeah.
No Nine Inch Nails. I was just gonna say something really calm. You can do like A Warm Place by 9 Inch Nails, but don't do Head Like a Hole by 9 Inch Nails.
That's too much stuff for me.
In fact, I should meditate to A Warm Place.
I know.
I bet you that'd be a great song to meditate to. But the point being is that pick, and just kind of put yourself and just let your mind roll on that problem, and you'll be surprised the ideas that will come to you. I mean, there is times where I'm trying to fix something, or I'm not even trying to fix something. Like typically when I meditate, and I don't think a lot of people do this, but I pick a thing within my business, and I just zoom in on that, and I focus on that. And I think
sometimes we don't want to zoom in on something when we're working or when we're doing something, but sometimes if you force yourself to, and that's where I'm been like doing my own life even.
I think the biggest advantage is I can sit and think about something when I'm doing other things, but the problem is I'm doing other things, my brain gets distracted. Right. If I'm in a meditative state and I start thinking about that one thing, that's the only thing I can think of, and that's where the answer comes to. And I don't think we take enough time to do that ever in our life, and I don't think we ever really want to sit and think about one thing at once. It's hard. So I think that's a really beneficial thing for us to do. So I really do think that getting in touch with our spiritual side, whether it's with meditation, which I know we were talking a lot about at the end here, yoga, I love doing that because, I mean, I do 15 to 20 minutes a day here, and that's great. I mean, between moves, during moves, I mean, generally when you're holding moves, you're not doing a whole lot anyway. So while you're holding your move, instead of thinking, boy, this is hard, why not think about, okay, so what was I going to do today? Let's see, I'm doing this and doing this. And just the way you just described that, what are you doing? When you're meditating, you're putting yourself into a meditation state. Or when you're doing a yoga pose, you put yourself in a meditation.
I mean, if you think about it, when we were doing one of ours last week, there was one where we were sitting on our toes and you're like, this hurts so bad. And she just kept talking through it to make sure we didn't hurt. And you're like, this girl, how is she doing this? So instead you could be thinking, okay, so this hurts. So instead I'm going to put myself somewhere else so this doesn't hurt. So you think about stuff like that. I've been really loving getting in touch with nature more lately. It's probably just because the weather hasn't sucked lately. But really, go on more walks by yourself. I've been doing that more lately because we always go on nightly walks together, but I've been going on more walks by myself, just short walks, so that I can really take in the atmosphere around me. Seriously, if you just go on a short walk, couple blocks around your neighborhood, you'll be surprised at just the little things that you notice on your own. Go in your backyard, whatever. These are just little things. You notice things that you connect with by yourself. All these little things that I mentioned. Practice gratitude. Honestly, little things, when you help other people, you'll notice the things that you get back. Seriously, you'll be surprised. And again, I mentioned a whole plethora of different things that you can do, but there's so many things that you can do to get in touch with your spiritual side. And I'm not even kidding you guys. You are going to get back tenfold when you start putting in, and you are going to start to feel so much lighter. You are going to get to know yourself a ton more. And once you start doing one thing, you're probably going to want to add on more. And I'm not saying you're going to want to add on more right away. Maybe you will, but you might want to add on more shortly. Just, keep this episode. You can keep tapping back into it.
And the other thing I want to, just as an encouragement to people, is that I think so. For the past few weeks, one of my one of the guys that works at my warehouse all the time has been down literally for like a month and hasn't been coming to work. And we've been in one of the busiest probably periods in the last 6 months of the warehouse. And my stress level during this time has been almost zero. Like, I have not been stressed out about the amount of work that needs to be done at all. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I can't even explain it. I've kept up with everything that had needed to be done. And to me, the only thing I can equate that to is just being more mindful and more through meditation and stuff like that. I'm just a more calm person and can handle this a lot better. And there's a lot of people that will say that, well, Eric, you're like the calmest person in the world.
They always do, but I'm like, you should see him when he's playing Madden, you guys.
Yeah, like, it's like, if you think that about Eric,
but you are
don't
way
know
more
Eric.
calm now. You're getting more calm. And it's funny because yesterday, Katie, you guys were coming back in the kayaks and they were singing Neil Diamond. And she's like, God. And she goes, oh, Eric is so calm. And I said, well, he does meditate 3 times a day. And she goes, well, good for him. So...
Yeah, I just so you know, when they were singing,
you about to
I was
toss
like,
yourself overboard?
No, I was like, okay, we can stop singing now. So
yeah. Well,
I kept telling Michelle, I was like,
we could hear you
Michelle,
back on
I'm
shore,
like, Michelle, you're not supposed to be encouraging this. You're supposed to be stopping this. You know?
Well, we could hear you on shore, and I thought, oh dear, it's a good thing that he meditates, because we were both looking at each other, and poor Katie was like, I just don't know how he's doing this. And I said, meditation. That's how he does it. Because I don't know how he's not throwing himself overboard either, other than that. So, but yeah, honestly, it is surprising how meditation and things like this really does help. Because I don't know. I mean, yeah, you told me the other day that your worker, our friend, has been out, and I didn't realize it was that long. And because I
think it's been 4 weeks, and
I would have thought that you would have been more stressed then too. Because wow, you have been
because I
really
built
chill.
out a second warehouse since the beginning of August.
You have been doing a
up.
lot. I mean, there was one day that you were a little bit stressed, and I think it was just because that was when you were opening the other warehouse, kind of.
I mean, I'm sure there was days where I was stressed, but the level of stress, like
the level of stress was not what it should have.
Yeah, like normally in this situation, I'd be waking up every morning trying to run out the door just to try to get. And then at the end of the day, I'd come home and you'd be like, "How'd your day go?" And I'd be like, "Well, I didn't feel like I got anything done."
Yeah. So really, I mean, the level of stress that you were under was not anywhere what it should have been. So.
Yeah, and the guy that's been out, he still looked terrible, but he came into the warehouse the other day. I think he was going to try and work, and I'm like, dude, you're not working. You're not in the state. He's like, but I'm so better than I was. I'm like, but you're not good, at all.
He's too sweet. We have to force him to not work.
Yeah. So, but he came in, and I was telling him about everything that had transpired while he was gone, and he's like, How are you doing this? How did you keep up? And I'm like, I have no idea, man. Like, I really have no idea. Because there's no way I should have. Like, this month already has been like 3 times the workload of a normal month, and yet I've stayed caught up.
Wow.
So
yeah, I guess if meditation had commercials like Milk did, it'd just be like, meditation.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. But the hard thing about it is that, first of all, when I look at it, I could just be giving meditation the credit.
Right. And maybe
because I don't know if it's the meditation that's done
right.
it. And, like, I don't really know anything. Like I assume that has played a role in it, but it's like, I don't know. Is it just, have I gotten better at organizing myself? Or it could be so many things. And that's where I think a lot of this stigma comes from with this stuff, is because there's nothing you can definitively attach to meditation helping you.
Right. Well, and again, like the other night when the wedding was so loud and I went out and meditated, I was like, this is helping me. So little things like that.
So,
but yeah, it definitely getting in touch with the spiritual side is making things a lot easier. So I highly recommend.
We hope
or
that.
we think, but I definitely think that it is. I'm not saying it was the fast road. It was something that, I think if somebody listens to this, they'll hear when I started to meditate and I was like, I don't know how to meditate. And then they'll hear when we had Jess on and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this again. And I got a lot better. So I'm not saying that the first time you meditate is going to be easy. Maybe it will be.
The first time you meditate, it shouldn't be easy. It should get easier over time.
Yeah,
because it is really hard to.
It is.
I mean, and our default, especially in today's society, our default is if we stop and there will just be lots of crazy, stressful thoughts running through your head.
Yeah.
The first time you meditate, and the whole object of meditation is that doesn't mean that meditation doesn't work. It just means that you now have to keep doing it until you can get that shit out of your head.
Right. Or,
and
then you figure it out, you acknowledge it and say, I understand why you're here. I understand you. And,
Tracy had indicated earlier, if you just can't really get past that point, smoke a little ganj. And then try to meditate, and it'll get you there that much faster.
Yes, it is. I really do like meditating when I'm high. I can meditate when I'm not high, but meditating when I'm high
and I just think
really
that
nice.
it'll help you when you meditate. It'll help you get to that state when you're not high if you do it high a couple times.
It is true. It really is true. But
then again,
we're not encouraging getting high, guys, but it does help you.
And the important thing to realize is that I'm not a scientist with this, but I believe that cannabis hits people a lot different. All people
absolutely,
because
we have two friends that either don't get high or do the babyest.
Yeah,
so don't listen to us about it getting.
That's our experience with weed.
And you don't want to see how much I can take.
Don't be surprised if you have a different experience because it is very different.
Yeah, because some people get really hyper. I think Katie gets hyper.
Yeah, right. And if you understand, so basically the way marijuana, THC works is you have all these receptors in your body. And
we're going into it.
Well, this is going to be real quick, but the receptors, they do different things, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what happens is when you smoke THC, the THC connects to all of these different receptors, and they all just start going crazy.
Okay.
And that's why you get that weird feeling. It's because all these receptors in your body that normally wouldn't be firing are firing.
Okay.
And so if you think about that,
so
these receptors are all doing different things. It could hit different people very differently.
That makes sense.
Especially since it might be that it might not ever cling to a receptor in you that it clings in me, and it might cling to or something, or just so it is. It's can affect people extremely differently. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind. We're not lying when we say that weed helps us. It's just that. It might
absolutely not help anybody else. So be careful.
It'll help other people, but it's not going to help everybody. It depends on how the weed hits them.
Yeah, so be very careful if you ever do it or anything like that. So, but yeah, I would definitely recommend you start if you haven't ever started getting in touch with your spiritual side. If you have, continue, hopefully, because it is a huge benefit. And if there hasn't ever been anything proved about it, who cares? Does it ever matter? Does it ever hurt anybody taking 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes out of your day to get in touch with yourself? I don't think so. Yeah,
and I would say that if you're one of those people that's kind of a non-believer in stuff like this, or you think it's all hokey, whatever, start with the thing that seems least ridiculous.
I was going to say, start with the thing that seems least ridiculous and the easiest thing, because if you start with the easiest thing, you can start taking on more and it'll become easier.
And I feel like the fundamental one that I would recommend to everybody is meditation. And
I would too. The only thing is it might be a little bit hard. So if you're a yoga type person, you can maybe do yoga and then add meditation.
See, and I think yoga to to get the meditation part of yoga, or to get the mental part
getcha.
out of doing yoga, I think that's harder than meditation, because
but yoga
you're meditating with yoga, you're meditating, but you're also holding a pose at the same time.
But yoga slows you down.
Yeah, but it's still...
It depends.
I guess maybe it would be better for some people if you struggle to slow down.
Mm-hmm. See?
But...
I think to each their own, however...
But just try whatever... Mm-hmm. I mean, if anything, if y'all think this is all crap, but you're like, fine, I'm willing to try it, then go with yoga, because if we are full of crap, guess what? Yoga's a good workout. Yeah. So at least you get a good workout out of the deal.
And you know what? At least, there's a couple of them. Practice gratitude. Look inward. Nothing ever hurt anybody by practicing gratitude, helping people look at why they tick the way they tick. I mean, these are all little things that we should all be doing anyway, right? So you can do those without doing any kind of meditation and all that stuff, right? I can help Eric or anybody. I helped a little kid get the cap off of his bottle yesterday. I don't think that took any skin off of my back. So, doing little things like that makes you feel good. That makes you, mm-hmm. That's karma that
Start small.
Back.
Start
exactly.
small and
right?
just build on it. And that's actually how you be successful with anything. So
exactly.
And the other thing I would tell for anybody that's kind of a naysayer on this type of stuff, and you wanna like, well, I want to kind of get into my head that this could potentially be real, is the number one thing, because I'm very much that person, the number one thing I have found to kind of get my mind to be like, well, this could be real, is to take that thing and look at the things, and you can even do research mm-hmm. into the topic to learn more about it, but look at what you know logically.
Exactly.
And say, well, could this in any way be real?
Right.
Because, again, like I've said, if you look at everything truly analytically, none of this stuff can be disproven.
Right.
And people will tell you it can, but it can't.
Yep.
Because you can't disprove that Bigfoot isn't real. Because, I mean, all we really know is that hundreds, thousands of people see this thing. And that's really all we know. But nobody's gotten a picture of it.
We just know that he probably doesn't like people.
No. How do you prove that? Right. And it's the same thing with paranormal. There's hundreds of thousands of people that claim they've had these paranormal experiences, but how do we know? There's Reikis that say they can see chakras glowing in people. How do we ignore that and say, well, you're a liar? I
choose to live in a world where that's a possibility.
Right.
So, you know what? I think that starting today, starting tomorrow, maybe you guys can put on your to-do list, practice gratitude, start living a life of looking inward. Anything like this where you can start doing any of this.
And I think you'll learn a lot of stuff about yourself in the process.
I don't think that can hurt. Maybe some of you think it can hurt, but anyway, I think it's going to only help you in the long run.
It will only help you. And I'm sorry, it might offend you a little bit that if you realize something that you're like, I don't like that about me. I'm not saying that. But you're never going to fix it if you don't realize
I'm not saying that I didn't find anything about myself that I didn't like, but you change it.
You change it, or you try to change it, or maybe you even accept it as who you are.
Exactly. We all accept it. Apparently, you must have friends. They accepted it.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I think we should all make a goal to start looking inside of our spiritual self if you haven't yet.
And the other thing another big point I like to always harp on this is that people don't like you for the things that are normal about you. They like you for the abnormal.
As you said, you probably wouldn't have come over to me if I didn't, I guess we were at the same table, but I guess you said we probably wouldn't have started dating if I didn't have red hair, if I would have had my blonde hair.
That's very possible. Yeah. And so when you're thinking about this, like, yes, I'm not going to tell you that if you become really into this spiritual stuff, you may lose friends, or, like the friends may distance themselves from you.
But then you might gain some really awesome friends.
But you're also going to gain a ton of friends, because all the people that are into this type of stuff are going to love that you're into it. Mm-hmm. So,
and they're going to be really genuine about it too.
Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind. Like, if you're like, well, people are going to think I'm weird. Well, that's fine. Let them go, so and go find the people that don't think you're weird.
Then you're going to have some really weird friends that are also going to like it too.
Yeah. The important thing is that you don't think you're weird, which I shouldn't say that's even important, because I completely think I'm weird, and I think I'm weird and I
love it.
Yeah. Just embrace it. So yeah, I'm done now. I've talked way too much.
I was going to say, yeah, I've been done for a while, so.
I know you have. I can tell. I can just look at your face and tell.
But yeah, so I guess if you don't have anything to add, I also don't have anything to add. And I think that's a really good place to leave it. And like I said, I think we should all really make a goal to either start or continue getting in touch with our spiritual side, because I do think that is an important side of ourselves to not ignore and to really put at the forefront of ourselves. Because even though we can't see it, it's there. Mm-hmm. And I think it plays an important part of us.
And even if it isn't there,
right,
it still can give you benefit. So
exactly.
So
right.
I mean,
we're right, not, I guess we don't know it's there.
We don't know what's there, what's not there.
What's not. But I think it's important. I really do. It can benefit you no matter what.
But I mean, we're telling you something very simple you can do that can drop your stress level in your life.
Absolutely. Choose the easiest way.
I mean, gonna venture a guess that 80% of our listeners, at a bare minimum, could greatly benefit from that.
Yep.
So
yeah. All right, guys. Well, with that, we're gonna leave you until 2 weeks from now. But we have some journals that you can listen to, so don't worry. And we do have another podcast. It's called SAOW Bookselling Book Reviews. So you can listen to that. And you can find, of course, backlogs of this on our website.
It's stigmasandopenwounds.com. I'm not sure why she wouldn't know that.
Yeah, Eric, I don't know. I just completely blanked on that, so Eric had to jump in.
Just keep in mind that the episode sections of that website are not completely updated. I'm only through about the first 1.5 seasons at this point in time, but it'll come. But
hey, it's there. It's there.
So, but all the journals are up there. Except for maybe this month's journals, because I haven't done those yet.
But we're working on it. And it looks really fantastic, because he's been doing a good job on that. So check it out. But with that, we'll be back. Later, guys.
Later.